And here we are. We're back. Tuesday. I'm still here.
You are.
I was starting to feel a little queasy last night, but anyhow, this is the Idaho Examiner's Voice of Reason.
You don't do that to me again.
I'm Kim Ward, and this is Becky Ponca. I think they warned me. They said being diabetic, that sometimes it'll sneak back up, so I should get plenty of rest. But I feel better. So I'm still here. We're here, barely. Anyhow, we have a guest.
We do.
We do have a guest here today. Grandmaster Mike Sutton from the Masons.
Yes.
Has come to grace us with his presence.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the Masons, because it's well, the way my mom's always put it is it's a secret organization. Well, you're not being so secretive anymore, and we're really curious. So you're much more visible than you used to be. So I think the first thing is, where did the Masons start from, and
it has a long history, and it's worldwide. So, I mean, Mason's been around forever.
Well, for us anyway, it's been forever.
Yeah.
But in fact, that's part of the mystery of Freemasonry, is where it actually started from. Our first known manuscript that we can date it back to is 1390, called the Regis manuscript. And from there, there's not a lot of records, but the most agreed upon, I guess, scenario is that Masons probably came from the guilds of stonemasons, and even that is not totally agreed on, but generally accepted with their societies, I guess you'd call it guilds, where Freemasons were able to travel from one part of the country to another, and even into Europe, and back and forth between England and Europe and the different countries there. That's our best guess, at least at this time. 1717 is when 4 lodges in England decided to unite and form the Grand Lodge of England. And that's our earliest recorded information, where we have a Grand Lodge and lodges that actually operate with a charter and with written records.
Oh, okay. And then when did Freemasons end up starting to have a presence in the colonies and in the States?
Probably around 1730.
Okay.
Again, there's what records there are generally mention Freemasonry as sometimes in the form of advertisement. And even Benjamin Franklin had an expose, you might call it, of Freemasonry in his one of his papers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't remember the date right offhand, but it's generally available, I think, through historical research that you can find that. And I think you'll find a reference to in this book I might just point out, this Complete Idiot's Guide to Freemasonry.
I was seeing that when you brought it, I was going, wow, they've got one of those books for everything.
They do. And
so does it give the detail, well, some details, because it really is shrouded in a mist of mystery, really. I mean, there's not much said, but it's becoming... But what is said is usually good. So,
well, not always, and it even talks about that in these books.
So it does bring all that up, yeah.
It does bring it up because there's a lot of myth. We've been called a secret society for years and years.
But you're not really, are you?
I never have been, really.
Oh, really?
But
okay.
Because they started in guilds, and you have to remember what the world was like. Well, at least from reading. They were able to travel because they had a particular skill. And they wanted to be sure that the people who were traveling were able to identify themselves, usually with hand signals and words, so that they could be assured that the people they were receiving and allowing to work were men who had the skills. And they could only acquire those skills through apprenticeship. And you could only receive those signs and words after you served it.
I see.
In much the same way, our modern lodges use those signs and words for admission or recognition. But typical of secret societies, you won't find public buildings. You won't find their names being advertised. You won't find them having open houses like we did last year. We're proud to be Masons. We advertise the fact, if that's what you want to call it, We like to talk about Freemasonry, to let people know what it is and what it isn't. And, you know, if you're looking for a Masonic scholar, I'm not that guy. There's a lot of people who make a study of Freemasonry itself, and a lot of societies or research mechanisms that do the same thing. What John and I'm talking about John Klein, our secretary of Mount Kinport Lodge, sitting over here, is probably what it means to us individually. And a mistake that a lot of men make is they use it for other things, or that they stop after they take the first 3 degrees and don't use it as a means to look for further light, as we call it, or knowledge. And you can only do that by reading and studying what there is available for that.
Now, is it a myth then that in order to become a Mason you have to be invited or have a family member that's already a Mason? Or
No, any man can join.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things that we require is that he join of his own free will and accord. That doesn't mean that I couldn't talk to you, ask you if you have an interest in Masonry. And we have some booklets, we have some brochures that I could give you. But that doesn't mean I'm asking you. It's giving you information, much as we are now. Mm-hmm. At that point, or some point after you've read enough and asked enough questions, you may ask, well, how do I become a Mason? And that's really all we need from a man, is that he has an interest. And at that time, I can present him a petition.
Okay.
At this point, it strictly is for men, then.
Yes.
It's a club for men, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
But
you guys have gotten some grief over that in the past. I mean, any society or group that has, based on gender, seems to get a lot of grief. But you guys, and I'm just pointing it out, and I'm sure you can answer to that why that is. So,
again, that generally comes from the guilds, who were men only. Interestingly enough, you'll find if you read this Complete Idiot's Guide, and I knew that there were organizations that allowed women, Masonic organizations, but I didn't know how widespread it was. Oh. It'll talk in here about women who were actually initiated into Freemasonry because they had overheard or actually saw a ceremony, and it references when that was.
Wow.
Those usually occurred in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Some of it's documented and some of it is not well documented.
So it wasn't like prohibited, it was just,
No, and women actually are encouraged to join some of our appendant and concordant bodies. Eastern Star being the most recognizable for women, and then Young Ladies for Job's Daughters. Yeah. They're the most two prominent organizations that people have heard of. Yeah. We also have an organization for young boys called Himalay. And again, there's another young ladies organization called Rainbow for Girls. Job's Daughters differs in the fact that you do require a Masonic relative